I apologize. I forgot to hit record, so I just need to start this over for a moment. My name is Jana Parker, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for AMS's first webinar on networking tips for doctoral students. We have a great panel today for you that will be introducing themselves. My name is Jana Parker, and I am the VP of Engagement for AMS. I'm a marketing professor at James Madison University. A little bit about my background. I completed my doctorate at Louisiana Tech, and while there, I got involved with AMS as a doctoral student, and I have been involved with AMS ever since. And over the last few years, I've been on the executive council. This is my 6th year on the executive council, but I started out just as a session chair and reviewer. So I am now going to tell you a couple of things about today. First, I will be monitoring the Q&A box for questions. We will be having a Q&A session at the very end, and I do request that you, and I did show you the slide that I need to show you a different slide. I apologize for that. I will be monitoring the QA box. I do ask that you present your questions in the QA box and not the chat, and also that those questions are directed to me as the host. And that's because our panelists will be busy discussing, and it'll just be easier if I take all of the questions and present those at the end. Okay. And then at the end of today's event, you will receive an email with a survey. And we ask that you complete that survey to give us some feedback about today's event. This will also be recorded and available later online. So it should be on social media and our website. So now I'm going to just briefly introduce our panelists today, one at a time, but they will then give some information about themselves. So first of all, Hanju Shin.
Hello, my name is Hyunju Shin, and I'm an associate professor of marketing at Georgia Southern University, and I graduated from the University of Alabama. I've been associated with AMS since I was a doctoral student for the last 9 years, since 2011 Coral Gables Conference. I've served as a reviewer and a session chair so far for the conferences, for the AMS conference, and for the upcoming AMS conference, I'll be a track chair for the advertising track. My research interests include relationship marketing in retailing and services and luxury brand management. Thank you. Next, Julie.
Hi, so my name is Julie Mullard. I'm currently serving as president of the Academy of Marketing Science, just beginning my term this past June, and I've been very involved in AMS for over a long time, since I was a doctoral student, but I've been on an officer since 2012. I'm currently an associate professor at Louisiana Tech University. Received my PhD from Texas A&M in 2004 and was on the faculty at LSU previously. And my major research areas are brand authenticity. I've got something that's just published online in JAMS on that topic. And then also my other big topic is on human branding, and actually the intersection between those two topics. And so I'll hand it off next to Obi.
Hello, everyone. Obi Obolo here. As of 3 days ago, associate professor at Central Michigan University, not still in the limelight for Louisiana Tech, but I also graduated from Louisiana Tech in 2014. And with AMS being housed there, I've been involved with the Academy since my doctoral days in very many capacities. Currently, I serve as Vice President for Communications for AMS, so you guys are going to see a lot of emails and social media communication coming from me / my office. And my research interests generally focus on human branding and also with brand engagement and engagement in general. And I'm looking forward to talking with everybody today. And passing it on to Joe.
I was a doctoral student, and it really didn't exist when I was an assistant professor. I got involved AMS about 40 years ago, before most of you people were born. I've served in a lot of the different positions, including presidency in the 1990s, mid-90s, and then later on the board of governors. You probably know me best for my multivariate book, but I've done a lot of other things, and I've enjoyed very much my time with AMS. And I'm looking forward to meeting and getting to know and perhaps working with some of you people in the future. Back to Jana, or is there something else?
Thank you. We are now going to have Dana Harrison. She is providing us with our IT support today, should we have any problems, and she is also an officer with AMS. So Dana?
Yes, hi, sorry, I was trying to talk to one of the attendees. So I'm Dana Harrison. I'm actually an assistant professor at East Tennessee State University. I obtained my degree at Kennesaw State University, actually under Joe Hare, and have been an active member at AMS for many years. I've been really fortunate. I'm going into my third year of service for AMS as the Director of Technology and Data Management. And I guess my research interests really focus around customer relationship management and marketing analytical methods. So.
Okay, and we have another panelist that will be joining us in a little bit, but he's not able to join at this very moment. So what we're going to do is go ahead and start with our presentations, and then when John Ford joins us, we will have him go ahead and do a little bit of introduction before he does his presentation. So Julie, I'm going to have you now tell a little bit about AMS.
Great, thanks, Jana. And so, yeah, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with AMS, and AMS is, if you haven't figured that out, since we keep talking about how involved we are, AMS is hosting this webinar. So I want to give a brief background on AMS. First of all, AMS was established in 1971. So next year, 2021, marks AMS's 50th anniversary. We're excited about that. We hopefully will be celebrating this in New York City. And actually, Joe Harris co-chairing the conference. So he might want to speak a little bit more about that when he has a moment. And so AMS, we publish 2 journals. Hopefully you've heard of the journal, the Academy of Marketing Science, one of the top marketing journals. Maybe you did not, maybe didn't come across to you that AMS, or the Academy of Marketing Science, is tied to, I mean, the names, you know, obviously the name Academy of Marketing Science is in the journal's name, but some people don't recognize that. So I wanted to point that out. Our editors, John Hullen, he's editor-in-chief, and Mark Houston is editor. And some exciting news about JAMS is, well, since 2017, JAMS has had the highest 2-year impact factor of all the major marketing journals. And just to give you, and so since 2017, the numbers for 2019 just came out about a month ago, and JAMS is still in the lead. So just to give you a point of reference, JAMS is ranked, its impact factor, is 7.96. And following that is JCR, which is 6.21, then JM at 5.27. So JAMS has been in the lead. And so we're very excited and proud about that. We also publish AMS Review, which is a relatively new journal. And it focuses on conceptual articles. AMS realized that over the past few decades that conceptual articles have been declining, even though they have a huge impact. They're very, very impactful articles. And so we realized that this was a deficit in the marketing discipline and decided to begin a journal to address that issue. Currently, Steve Vargo, Vargo and Lush, the service dominant logic. You haven't heard about that in your doctoral studies, and we'll be introduced to that soon. He is a mastermind conceptualizer. So we are very happy to have him as our editor and expect that that journal to grow and gain more prominence. I won't spend much time talking about our conferences. Hopefully John Ford will get on in a few minutes and he'll talk more about our 2 conferences that we host every year, our annual conferences in North America. and also the AMS World Marketing Congress that is held outside of North America. And then lastly, something else that we have began today, and that is online events and webinars. So, you know, COVID has caused us to put things on the sidelines, and so we realized we need to innovate, and so we are doing that by hosting this first webinar and hopefully more webinars in the future. And so, again, Jana mentioned that there's a survey that we'd like you to fill out at the end after this concludes, and so we'd love to hear your feedback. So I will now hand this over to Hanju so we can get started to talking about tips for networking.
All right, thank you. So thinking back when I was in your shoes as a doctoral student, I heard many people keep telling me to network, but I've never understood why networking was so important until I became a faculty member and realized how things evolved from networking at the conference to benefit my career. As an academic, we enjoy many benefits. We pursue our own research interests, we have breaks, and we become our own boss when it comes to scheduling our days, and we have many opportunities to travel. Attending conferences, I will say, is one of them. So how can we get the most out of our conference experiences? I find it very helpful to get my early stage work to be exposed at the conferences and get feedback for further development. So among the audiences, you may come across the journal editor, subject area expert, those who do research in your area, or potential reviewers who will share their experiences and invaluable insight. The conferences also helped me meet so many of my co-authors, Jana included. She and I met as a presenter and a session chair at the 2014 AMS Indianapolis. After the conference, Jana shared her assignment idea for a class, which I utilized in my class. And then we analyzed the student submission and developed it into paper and later published at a journal. During the same conference, I met Riza Cassidy at Macquarie University in Australia, who I co-authored 3 POPs so far together. He first asked me to review papers for a journal he was guest editing, and then from there, our work relationship has really evolved. You may also meet wonderful mentors, mentees, or even potential coworkers through networking. Diana Hago at East Carolina University is one of my mentors, and she was my reference when I was interviewing for a job at my current institution. At the same time, I don't want you to think that as a mentee, you have nothing to offer to those who guide you through your career. I wrote Diana a letter of support as a mentee about her mentorship for her promotion to full professor. So what I'm really getting at is that those relationships are mutual, not one-sided. I also see myself citing works from those who I met and know than those who I don't know or haven't met at the conferences. For instance, when Jana and I were working on a piece on a retailer nostalgia, we cited many of John's previous work on nostalgia advertising that he published with Altaf. Finally, I got to talk to Altaf at our AMS conference 2 years ago after Jana and I published a paper. Little did we know, he was one of the reviewers for our paper. So with all those being said, attending conferences is not cheap. As you know, COVID-19 we're in is not only a health crisis, but also a financial crisis for lots of our institution. Regardless, you need to treat going to conferences, even the virtual one, as an investment into your career and try to pool all the resources to save costs as much as you can. As a doctoral student, there may be some conference grant opportunities coming from respective conferences you're attending, your department or other external resources. Just Google it or talk to your PhD coordinators. And if your school doesn't fully reimburse your conference expenses, I think you need to consider sharing rooms or carpooling with others. However, while you're saving costs as much as you can, we strongly recommend that you still stay at the conference hotel so that you don't miss out any opportunity to network and become visible in the academic community. If you're presenting papers rather than simply attending, you're more likely to be fully funded. So use the conference deadline as a motivation to focus on your research. So, to sum it all, my academic life is much fuller because of those academic conferences I go yearly and because of people I meet at the conferences. To continue our discussion now, I will turn it over to Julie so that she can share some tips on how to maximize your during conference experience for networking.
So I'm going to give you some counterintuitive advice, and that is don't attend the sessions. Okay, so this is a bit tongue-in-cheek. You should be attending sessions because you can get some really good research ideas. You can also learn how to give a presentation. You can't do that without watching that, so you get some of that. But the problem with attending too many sessions is there is little one-on-one interaction. So it's like many to one, a one-to-many interaction. You're not interacting with anyone. And my first conferences, I was really concerned that our department head, who was Rajan Vararajan at the time, that he was going to catch me missing sessions. And I was so concerned that I was going to, get put in detention or something, but this is not high school. Nobody's there taking attendance. And the fact of the matter is you don't get that much one-on-one interaction with people when you attend sessions. You could sit at home and get plenty of research ideas without attending any sessions. But you cannot really meet people at home. So that is what's so important about, making sure that you are out and about, and I call it working the halls and making sure that you are meeting with people when you're not attending those sessions that you're most interested in. So of course, you need to attend some sessions, the ones that you're most interested in. Maybe also stick around and meet the people who are presenting. That's good. But I would just try to focus on just a few key sessions. And then other than that, you need to be networking because you cannot do that when you're at home, although you can get lots of research ideas at home. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that, that conference time is very precious time. Most people attend maybe 2 at the most, maybe 3 conferences a year. And so that is not that much time. You don't want to waste it. I like to maximize my time at the conference and try to meet as many people as possible. So one thing you don't want to do is go sightseeing all day. Now, don't feel guilty about not attending sessions, but you should feel guilty about going sightseeing, because your department, your university is paying for your trip. So keep that in mind. If you want to stay an extra day on your own dime, that's fine. But personally, I rarely leave the conference hotel, whole conference, because I'm there focusing on meeting people and catching up with people. And as you progress in your career, you're going to spend a lot of time just meeting up with people. Some other things is don't stay in your room all day. If you've got deadlines and stuff, get that done before the conference, including your presentation, which is the last bullet point there. You don't want to be staying in your room. You may have some deadlines. Maybe it might be worth it to be a little bit late on the deadline, or maybe not work as hard for that deadline because, like I said, this precious conference time, you don't have that much time to meet people. You need to maximize it. And something I do, or I did maximize earlier in my career, is I didn't go to bed early. That's when you stay up and you meet people after dinner, for instance. And I don't sleep. I would not sleep in either. Although in my old age, I'm realizing I need my beauty sleep. So, but for you young people out there, you could probably get away with this. So at least for 3 days. So I will now turn it over to, I think, is it Obi? Are you next or is it John?
John is next. And John, since you weren't here when we did the introductions, could you please give just a little bit of information, about yourself? We all talked about like how we got involved with AMS, or like 45 seconds of a recap of your stellar career. I know that'll be hard. Oh, and John, you were muted. Let's see here. There we go.
There we go. Hi. Well, those of you who don't know me, I started with AMS in 1987. And it has been my great love since I joined in 1987. I am the editor of the Journal of Advertising Research. I am co-director of international programs for AMS with Barry Babin. I'm on the board of governors, and I have been actively involved with AMS for now actively in a role of leadership for over 20 years. I would say that the AMS has been everything to me, and I will certainly say that AMS has been much more enjoyable than any of the other conferences that I've attended over the years. And I've gone to AMA and many others, and obviously this is the one that I felt was my home. Now, let me talk about conferences. It's really important. I run a PhD program, and I will say that my doctoral students have benefited immensely from attending AMS conferences and other conferences. Why? Because they've been able to network, because they've been able to get their papers presented, get feedback on those papers. This is a normal pathway to publication. Get those papers at the conference, get the feedback, get the reviews back. Now, granted, the reviews are not going to be as extensive as they would be for a journal, but they are helpful. Also, when you present your paper, you then will get feedback from the attendees in your session. So it's really important to get that feedback, help you shape then your paper for a journal submission, because you don't want it to die in just a conference presentation. So you want to be always thinking about that next step and the publication that's going to hopefully arise from that. Now, I would argue that AMS, we have the national conference, which is usually towards the end of May each year, and that is normally either that's in North America, either the US or Canada. Then we have the World Marketing Congress, which is another wonderful meeting, which then takes place in international locations, and that we determine several years ahead so that we know where it's going to be, and we can scout out all these locations to make sure which are going to be the best for the conference. But those have been wonderful, especially for interacting with international scholars. And over my career, I've published many articles with international colleagues. And so what the key element to these conferences is who you meet, how you get involved with them. Every one of my doctoral students has gotten publications as a result of going to the conferences. And one of the most important things about the conferences is that you will meet the people that you've been reading their work, and you'll find out that they are approachable. They are human beings. They like to talk about their work, and you may actually find out that these people are potentially interested in working with you if you've got something to offer. So I really want to stress that wonderful opportunity to get a chance to work with all of the potential people that are in your area of interest. Now, as Julie said, you don't want to attend every single session and spend all your time in sessions, because the networking is key, but be sure to go to those sessions that are all in your interest area. And you might find out that there are other people doing work in a very similar area, and you find out that those people might be willing to work with you or share their insights, which would be very helpful. Now, I'd also tell you that, of course, the AMA meetings take place twice a year. You've got the winter and summer educators meetings. Winter is usually in February, and of course, the summer meetings are in August, and that's when the normal, as we call it, the meat market takes place. Society for Marketing Advances is another very approachable organization, very friendly organization, just like AMS is. Very glad to have you there. And SMA usually meets in the first week of November. Then you've got the ACR. Now, if you're interested in consumer research, it is an absolute necessity to get to ACR, because the issue is going to be that, and especially if your goal is the Journal of Consumer Research, and to get your work at that setting and have people react to it is going to be very important to publishing in that consumer behavior area. So ACR is a very important one. That's usually in mid-October. Then you've got the Society for Consumer Psychology in mid-February. You've got Marketing Science in mid-June. Then there are also going to be, of course, AMA-sponsored events like the Frontiers and Services, also Public Policy. They have their meetings. Now, I would certainly argue that there are more opportunities for doctoral students, not just conferences. And so you've got certainly the consortia. Now, the difference with consortia, of course, is that you don't choose, your faculty will choose you for consortia. So one of the things that you might want to be doing is working hard, getting noted by your faculty as successful, and plant kind of the seeds that you'd be very interested in going to consortia. Now, consortia are the best and brightest of the doctoral students, and of course, that's a great interacting venue for getting to know others that are in the exact same position that you are, and that can be very, very helpful. AMA Staff Consortium is usually June or July. You've got the SMA Consortium, which is November at their national meetings. You've got AMS. We have a consortium which takes place at our own meetings, which is a great opportunity to get a chance to meet meet colleagues, meet, of course, two faculty that are very influential. So these are all very, very helpful forums. But let me tell you that what I have been doing for the last 15 years with AMS is we have what's called a Doctoral Colloquium. And what the colloquium allows you to do is present a paper in a less stressful environment. It's been my goal to bring you all along to become our future colleagues and to feel comfortable about coming to a meeting like the AMS. So the colloquium is an opportunity for you to present a paper in a session which is less stressful, less combative potentially, one where you will get very constructive feedback and where you will not have to feel quite so intimidated going into one of those types of sessions. So I strongly urge you to think about, when you submit papers to AMS, think about submitting a paper, especially they can only be written by doctoral students, so you can't bring faculty members in on those papers. But if you have something that you think might be worth trying to present, then please, by all means, think about sending that as a submission to the colloquium track at both AMS and the World Marketing Congress. So hopefully this has been helpful to give you an idea, but please don't miss the opportunity to get to the conferences and network. And I think now I turn it over to Obi.
That's right, John. All right, so we've gotten a lot of information so far with all the speakers. What I'm going to do now is just kind of reiterate some of those points by focusing on building relationships and also giving you guys some actionable items for you to really focus on as you begin to expand your network, throughout your doctoral career and in the future. So my first point here is about making friends with everyone, whether it's other doc students, whether it's professors, editors, publishers. To reiterate a point that John made, and I'm going to reiterate this strongly, when you go to the conferences, feel free to approach people. They're humans just like you. I like to give a story about my first conference, which is ironically the first conference for some other folks here as well, with AMS. And it was in 2011, after my first year in the doctoral program. I went to the Ams Conference, and I started seeing these names and the name tags of all these people that I've read their works, as John was mentioning. And I see Joe Hare, and I'm like, I've been working with his multivariate book. I see Jack Dish Chef, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I've read, most of the stuff he's done. I see, John Ford at the time, because I was really interested in advertising. I was like, I've read your work, and then I see O.C. Farrell and all these people that I've read all their work, and I was like, I can't believe all these folks are here. And what's really interesting is I consider myself to be somewhat of a social person. I just decided to approach, some of these folks and talk to them. And, hours later, I'm hanging out with O.C. Farrell, sharing a drink together and watching the Miami Heat take on the Bulls back in 2011 playoffs. John and I have talked many times over the years now, but I remember talking back and forth and niddling each other about the English Premier League, about how my team Arsenal was better than his team at the time, and it's a lot of fun. So I realized, even as a first year or just finishing my first year as a doctoral student, that it doesn't matter how big the name is. Most of these people were just humans like you. So feel free to approach them. Nobody's going to bite your head off. And if they do, then probably they're not even worth knowing in the first place. So approach these people, whomever they are, whether they're editors of the big journal, you're not scared. Don't be scared to approach that person. Whether it's people you've read their work, don't be scared to approach that person. Whomever it is, go in there with that confidence and just speak to them like a human. Now, I've done that with a lot of people that are senior to me in my career, but I've also done that with a lot of people that I consider peers, and currently as well with people that are my juniors in the career. I have continually met people at these conferences, and in fact, I've made some of my really best friendships at some of these conferences that I've been to. So that's the second point I really want to make here about making friends, is when you're developing relationships, be patient. Just like in real life. Relationships that you develop in academia are going to take time. You don't just go in there and try to form that relationship on day one and say, we're going to be best friends, whether you want to or not. That's not what the goal is here, right? And don't go into that relationship with just the ulterior motive of, I want a job someday, so I'm going to make friends with all these big guys, or, I want to publish, in this area, so I want to make friends with this person that's doing some good work in that area. Go in with that same genuine, affection that you would in the real world. Try to make genuine relationships with people, because even if you don't publish with everybody you make friends with, which I don't with all the people I've made friends with, there's still tons of value that these people can add to your life. There's still tons of advice they can give you that will be useful throughout your academic career and your life as well. So make those friendships, make those genuine friendships at these conferences when you go out there. But just as everybody else has mentioned, some of these relationships will organically develop into academic relationships where you get to co-author with people, where you start to see your joint interests. Your first year, second year, you're still developing some of those interests areas. And as you're growing with some of these other doc students, you might learn some of these interest areas that you have. And as you continue to meet some of those people senior to you in your career, you can start to, focus your attention to some people who might have similar interests to you, and actually just meet and try to form genuine relationships with those people. So constantly, reiterating what Julie said, focus on going to a lot of the networking events, not just the sessions, but if there are networking socials at the end of the conference day, if there are coffee breaks in between, those are the times that you really should not be skipping out and going out and seeing the sites. Really go out there and genuinely try to meet people. That's where you really develop some of these relationships. Now, although I'm still talking about genuine relationships, the more people you meet, this could actually be good for your career as you go on in the future. When you finally graduate or are going out on the market in 4 years and going to the meat market conference and trying to look for a job, the more people the more people that can see this is a genuinely good person. This is somebody that is a serious, hardworking person, that people that you've met and you've shared, things with at the conferences. Your name becomes more known, and it makes it easier for somebody to make a decision on you versus somebody else that may not be as well known as you are. So that's important from that perspective. But in talking about career growth and networking and developing relationships as well, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to volunteer. So this is one of the actionable pieces I referred to earlier. You need to volunteer. What does that mean? When the list of conferences come out, as John has mentioned, all the conferences here, you can see who the track chairs are, you can see who the conference chairs are. Don't be afraid to email these people and say, hey, I'm willing to volunteer my services as a reviewer for a track, or I'm willing to volunteer my services as a session chair, or in any way you need me as a track chair, as you develop further in your career. When you review some of these conference papers, which I did even in my doctoral years, you start to get a lot of sense of writing styles, the current topics in the field. You start to learn a lot of things just by volunteering. So you're helping out and contributing to the service realm of the academy, but you're also growing yourself as an academic by doing some of these volunteering activities. But guess what? As I've mentioned before, The more of these activities you do, the more your name gets out there. Hey, I see this person always volunteers to be a track chair. This person always volunteers to review papers. You know, the more and more of those things you do, the more you begin to grow a name for yourself in the field as well. Now, as a doc student, you've got your own things going on as well, of course. You know, you're still trying to finish your classes. You're trying to write a dissertation. You might be teaching classes as well. So, you know, you don't want to overstretch yourself by volunteering to every single conference out there. One of the last pieces of advice that I'll give you is finding a conference home. You know, you might attend a few conferences, and I still attend a few conferences every year. But from the onset, which most people here would say as well, you know, I developed my conference as the Academy of Marketing Science, and AMS has been my home. So while I might volunteer to review at SMA or AMA or somewhere else, you know, the most of my contribution is at AMS. I found my conference home, my conference tribe, as Julie would mention. You know, the people that are my people within the academy, and I felt very comfortable here. And AMS has done that for me since my doctoral days. So I feel the most comfortable really putting all my efforts into volunteering at the Academy of Marketing Science. It doesn't mean I don't do things at all the other conferences. It just means that this is the place where I do the most. So, you know, to reiterate my points, don't be afraid to meet up with those people who might be super senior in your career, who have read your work. They're humans just like you, and they are willing to share things with you and also learn from you possibly. Take time to develop those relationships genuinely, not just for what you can get out of the relationships. And finally, find yourself a conference home and really volunteer and you know, contribute to the academy in some way. And I'm going to let Joe talk a little bit more about the social aspect and other things when it comes to networking and doing it right.
Okay, thank you, Obi. I'm going to talk a little bit more without duplicating, I hope, too much. And I'm going to focus a little bit on some of the rules that I share with my students, and also I plan to share with you. Receptions and breaks are both socializing activities, and you do need to try to meet people at those events because, as has been pointed out before, that's an informal opportunity and a chance to extend a little bit more time with people that you want to meet. I personally have found that it's important and helpful to me over the years to make a list ahead of time, to have some targets, people that you want to meet. Not 10 people necessarily, but when you get to the conference, find out who the attendees are. There's often a list of people, and identify 2 or 3 people. In particular, you need to focus on individuals that have common interests as you, but also individuals that are editors. The value of getting to know an editor is if you submit a journal article and you think that you get a bad review, almost all editors are willing to talk to you about it or discuss it. And you can send them an email and simply say, in a nice way, polite way, you know, I'm not so sure that this person read the paper as closely as they should or something. And if you've met them at a reception, they'll hopefully remember you. Now, when you're at a reception, they're going to be often hundreds of people. And you need to know then, therefore, who you want to look for and when you're circulating. Once you find someone, though, that's on your list, I tell my students to remember what I call the 10-minute rule. 10 minutes means that this is an opportunity to visit more than one person, and it's tempting. First off, it's too tempting for you to meet with and stay with your other colleagues, whether they're students or faculty, at your reception. Don't do that. What you should do is leave them, as I say, and circulate. Once you find someone, though, stop or politely leave after 10 minutes and go find another target. It's important to make sure you meet as many people as possible. In essence, this is like a business proposition. This is a huge opportunity for you to make an impact. Don't hesitate, by the way, to walk up and introduce yourself. As has been pointed out earlier, a lot of people, almost everybody I know, is very nice. I don't think that I've ever had a student tell me that someone was rude to them or was reluctant to talk to them. The other thing to remember about meeting a lot of people, and because all you people are, at least I think most of you are in marketing, you understand a little bit about advertising. And advertising rules tell you that in terms of seeing an ad, you generally have to see that ad 5, 6, 7 times to process it to long-term memory. Well, the same thing holds here in terms of meeting people. Don't expect people to remember your name until you've introduced and talked to them several times. So the 10-minute rule means to meet with them. You want to try to make an impression, a positive impression, so they process it to long-term memory and move on to the next person. Now, coffee breaks are an opportunity. That's one way to socialize and meet people, but receptions are also, as has been pointed out, another one. But the danger at receptions is there's often free-flowing alcohol. So some of you may not drink, but most of us, or many of us, do. And so I also share with my students what I call buzz management. Buzz management means when you go to the reception and you've had your limit, stop. Because the last thing you want to do is to make an impression that someone remembers that's negative. So always maintain that buzz. When you leave a person, they to learn and to grow and to something where you feel, something where you have, because over your lifetime you can't be every area. I've been methods, and I've found a lot of people to work with because there are people who are not strong in methods. And so look for people as well who can help you out in terms of having a complete portfolio of strengths, not just methods, not just literature, but theory. And then find them and work with them over the time. So enjoy it. By the way, one of the last things I want to say is you probably know that for the last 10 years or so, I've been involved in the field of methodology and PLS, partial least squares. Marcos Arstedt is one of my co-authors on a lot of the things I've done. I met Marco at an AMS meeting at a break. I walked up to him, said hello. He was a new member. New members come to conferences. We identify them in most instances, if we remember, with a little green dot on the badges. I saw Marco, and in fact, I started talking to him, and right away, I said, Marco, we need to write a book. And Marco then said, well, I need journal articles. I'm just starting. I said, we'll do both. And we've now done both after the last 10 years. So hope to see you in a future conference when we really get to meet and interact. And as Julie pointed out, I'm program chair along with a couple of other individuals, including Marco. And we hope to see you in New York. And we hope by then that things will settle down enough for us to really have a big group there and some receptions and some sessions that you'll benefit from tremendously. Okay, but is it back to Jenna now?
Yes, it is. And we've had quite a few questions. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of these today, but one I do want to answer, since this doesn't really need to go to the panel. Somebody asked about more information on the conferences. We put together a fact sheet that you should have had access to when you registered. And it has links to all of the conference web pages so that you can get information. If you did not receive that, then please just email me and I am going to send out my email address. If you would like this, I'm going to put this in the chat box, sent to everybody, and you can email me and I will get this out to you. Okay. So our first question that I do want to send to Julie is somebody wanted to know if, as a doctoral student, what is expected of them if they join AMS, and how do they join? So I think this is a simple one that you can talk about what we expect doctoral students to do.
Oh, what we expect you to do? Well, you know, we're in the COVID age right now, so it's a little bit different for what we expect you to do. But let's pretend the COVID is open. Of course, we would love for you to come to our conferences and interact. And you know, if you're in your first or second year, that may be a little bit too early to be reviewing papers. But if not, like Opie mentioned, we would love to have you review. Track chairs are often scrambling for reviewers, and I think doctoral students in their third and fourth year are equipped to review conference papers. And if you want to get involved with AMS any further, please reach out to any of us, and maybe Felipe, who is our VP for Global Membership. He would be the target person, the point person that you should contact if you're interested, because we have lots of things that need to get done, and we're a volunteer organization. We only have one official employee, actually, this Mary Ann Hooper, who is not our employee. She's a contract employee, so she's not, she does not work for AMS. But yeah, so that I think is the main things that we would want you to do. And I think I've answered the question. Does anybody else have something they want to add to that?
I think you got that. We have a bunch, so I'm going to
Well,
throw
I'd
some of
say-
these questions out to you. Oh, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Okay. I was just going to say it's very inexpensive for students to join, and so you'll get the the opportunity to get jams, and of course that's a very important thing to have these days. And I would say that there will be other events like this that will be forthcoming that will give you an opportunity to get value for your money.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, so people are asking some questions about, and I'm just going to kind of put these together. When they are at the conference, what are some ice breaking, how do you break the ice with somebody? Also, do you talk to people as a friend, or do you just talk about your research? That's a combination of a few questions that have been put together.
Let me just jump in real quick here. I mean, even me, and I guess I've been out for about 15 years, I still get nervous about this. And I actually saw Shelby Hunt. I don't know if y'all know who that is, but if you don't, he is a very, very famous person in our discipline. And I saw him at the airport as I was leaving winter AMA in February. And I was like, I have to introduce myself to him, but I was scared to death, but I did it anyway. And he was very nice. I just went up to him. I introduced myself. I mentioned somebody that we both knew. And that's how it started. So, I mean, you just have to now I did have a little bit of liquid courage at that point. So that helped.
Definitely. Buzz management. If I could offer something here, I would suggest that you at least, if you know who the person is you want to talk to, know what their work is all about. It always helps to go up to them and say, I've read your work on such and such, and I'd like to talk to you about that. That's a great way to break the ice with any of us.
And I would like to say from personal experience as a doctoral student, I was so excited to meet John and talk to him about nostalgia, and because that's one of his areas. And he was just so kind and gracious and helpful to this doctoral student who'd never even published a paper on it. So have now, but back then I hadn't. And just we've talked about nostalgia at every conference, I think, since.
Yep.
So here's another idea. Find someone who knows who you want to meet and ask them to introduce you.
Yep.
Well, that's a great idea. I think maybe finding someone a little older than you, senior, maybe another doctoral student, because in a year or two they're no longer going to be a doctoral student, or hopefully some of your faculty members will be there, or at least if they are not there, maybe ahead of time before you get to the conference, maybe your faculty members could reach out to some other people that they know that may be attending the conference and ask them to look for you so that you can, that they can introduce you.
And somebody about the whole, do you only talk about research or do you talk about other things like a friend?
I think you shouldn't miss the opportunity to talk research because that's a very popular topic. But it's okay to socialize in general and perhaps even talk about, well, maybe we should go to dinner tonight, because that's another opportunity that's an informal chance to get to know someone better. So research is always a popular area, but it's not a problem if you talk about other issues.
Okay, so another question that's come up is about funding. And people are asking about, conferences, what you all know about how they can try to get funding. John, you might know more about this, and then what do you make sacrifice-wise when you can't get funding?
Yeah, the hard part is, of course, in this COVID era, is that there are probably going to be some limits on financial support that's going to be provided to doctoral students. In my program, but it's a limited amount. So I think what you heard before about sharing expenses and things like that would probably be very helpful. I think that we don't charge all that much for membership, which is a plus, but also we have the early bird registration so that you can save a fair amount of money if you register early for the conference. I think that, we're not in a position as an organization to give money to travel to the AMS conference, but I think if it's important enough, and your school, the more research oriented your school is, the more that it's likely that your departmental chairman of your field of study may have some extra monies that may be able to be passed to you. And if not there, try the dean's office. I find that our dean is also willing to support doctoral students.
Can I jump in just a quick second? I just want to plug our organization, AMS. And because I think AMS conferences offer a great value. If you compare us to some of the bigger conferences, or I won't say bigger, maybe more attendees, some of these conferences are very expensive, running up to, well, at least for faculty, they're almost $600. AMS conference runs for, I think it's $375 this past 2 years. Okay, so we're substantially less expensive, but the conference lasts 3 days. Our conference is 3 days. For instance, an AMA is 2 days. We have 4 receptions. We have a reception on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and then Friday we have a reception and a gala dinner, and also dancing afterwards. So we have lots of opportunities for networking, probably way more than many of the other conferences. Now, again, we're still dealing with COVID, so I know we can't take advantage of that right now. We might. Hopefully, we are still crossing our fingers for our postponed conference in December. We were supposed to have one in May, and it's been postponed, and hopefully that still happens. But, so we can't really take advantage of that now, but just something to keep in mind. Just what are you getting for your money? That's another important thing to think about when you're considering which conferences you want to attend.
And just to add one small point to Julie's, our conference is even cheaper for doc students over fellows. Just there's another lower rate for doctoral students, which I think if you register early bird, it's about $250, which is even lower than the faculty rate. So that's something else, particularly for the audience, we have to really, the value for your money, as Julie has just mentioned, is spectacular.
So something else that's come up with several people is, I don't know that any of us are yet able to answer this question. How do you network during COVID-19, with these conferences?
Well, I would suggest that one of the things you could do certainly is to email the people that you would like to communicate with. And maybe if you can develop some kind of rapport beforehand, then when it comes time to conference, a virtual conference, if that's what happens, then you know who that person is, and maybe something they've said strikes something with you that you could follow up conversations with separately. So I think the more effort you make to communicate by email might be one way to at least get their attention beforehand, and then follow them at the conference.
I'll also add to John that not only email, you can utilize social networking website, including LinkedIn, ResearchGate, or some more private, such as Twitter or Facebook. Introduce yourself and tell them you want to be friends with them. Recently, I expanded my Facebook network just to share some of my work and to get to know more scholars from all over the world. So I think one way is to maintain your personal profile through the working website and get to know them better before you see them in person in the future conferences.
I want to add something on the social media. Join some of the social media specific groups. A person who's not here today, who's one of my co-authors, that we're working on a textbook, a lot of different things we've done over the years. We met, this is so funny, we're working on a social media textbook, and we met in social media in a specific female marketing scholars network. And then we realized we were going to a conference, and we met up together, and that began our friendship through a social media group. And so I would recommend you join those. There's so many marketing scholars groups, teaching groups on Facebook. I wouldn't suggest just sending random invitations to people on Facebook, but get to know them through those Facebook groups.
I wanted to mention just one thing, and that was Jan and I were discussing this as we were preparing for this webinar, and I thought, Janet, this is kind of a little ironic that we are having a webinar on networking, but nobody can, and we're talking about is networking at conferences, and we can't go to conferences. So, we talked about perhaps that AMS should have some online networking events, maybe not necessarily associated or affiliated with a specific conference, but something on a Thursday afternoon or whenever. So I don't know exactly how that would work, but if that would be something that you are interested in, that if again, we've got the survey, if you can fill that out, if that's something that you would like to see, please let us know, and we can look into that so that you can somehow network during COVID, which is a little difficult at this time.
Well, I think another idea you might supplement that with is not just networking, but if you want us to attempt to set up a group where we might present something on a particular topic, we might be able to find a member of AMS who would start the discussion on a particular topic, whether it was branding or whether it was something else that you might be interested in, or maybe even some kind of methodology topic.
Mm-hmm.
And that is once again something else we even talked about doing with the executive council, and you were in that meeting. So we wanted to start out with just trying the webinar and seeing if there was interest, and we are hoping to expand it into those types of things like you were talking about, Joe, because I think there's a need for this type of thing. So please give us your feedback on that survey so we can know what the interest is. The last one, and I'm sorry, there were a lot of questions and I've been trying to combine these. Once again, some tips. We do know that sometimes some people in academia can be a bit of an introvert, and I can remember it's easy for us to say, go up to people at a conference, but especially when you're a doctoral student and you're a little bit like wowed sometimes by you're seeing this person present. Do you have any tips on just that approaching? Because I think back to the days when I was my first one, how nervous I was.
Well, if you've gone to a session and somebody's presented, go up afterwards and say, I enjoyed your presentation. It was really enlightening to me, and that will surely start a discussion.
Yeah. That's going to be best, or follow it in the coffee break afterwards, after the session is over. If you feel a little intimidated during the session, and just say, I really enjoyed that. I'd like to talk to you about that. Sometimes doctoral students will come up to us and say, I've got another way of looking at it, and I'd like to ask your opinion. That's a great icebreaker. Okay, great. Let me hear.
Yeah, people like to hear that. Well, I think we've come about to the end of our time. So Julie, do you have any closing remarks you would like to say as our AMS president?
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. We have had up to almost 150 attendees. We actually had no idea how much interest there was going to be. We were worried that there were going to be fewer attendees than panelists. So it's great that you all came out to listen. I hope you learned a lot. So thank you. I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank Dana Harrison for being on standby for any technical difficulties. But most of all, thank Jana for putting this all together. It's been a lot of hard work. And, you know, this being our first webinar, she's had to really get up to speed on how to host this. It's a lot easier than it really is. So thank you so much, Jana, for putting this together. I really appreciate that.
Well, and thank you, everybody. I mean, we did practice sessions. I appreciate all the work you all did. One last thing that I'd like to say to the attendees is please, once again, don't forget to fill out the survey. And secondly, I did put my email address in there. There were questions some of you asked that I didn't get to, or that we couldn't get to, or that maybe I missed because there were so many that came in. So please feel free to reach out and ask questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll be happy to look for somebody who does. I know some of you asked about like job markets and some things like that. And any of the conferences, whether it's not an official job market, it's a place to get to know people. And don't forget, SMA and AMA both have the job markets, which can be a really good place for you to go to interview and get to know people. So
let me say one more thing. Go to the website and join now if you're not a member, particularly the doctoral students, so that you can get my call for papers, or our call for papers for New York, which is our 50th anniversary, and submit something so that you can participate, even if it is virtual.
Absolutely.
And also feel free to reach out to any of us. At least I don't want to speak for everybody, but feel free to reach out to me if you have a question you feel like you haven't gotten answered. I'm sure most of us would share that same sentiment. If you want to talk more privately, even if it's not in the webinar format, but I'm happy to share my email with you. Feel free to reach out to me. I got a lot from talking to people more senior to me starting my career, so I would be happy to share whatever little knowledge I've gained along the way in my few years in the career as well. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. And definitely when we get back to the conferences, look for us. Even if you're shy or introverted, do some of the tips Joe talked about or John talked about, or just find something interesting to talk about, even if it's the weather. We can break the ice that way. Just reach out and talk to any of us you see out at the conference as well. Join up, come to AMS 50 in New York. We're looking forward to see everybody there as well.
One of the reasons we chose to take the more informal approach with very few slides is because we all decided as we planned this, we wanted you to be able to recognize our faces when you're at AMS. So remember this, you may not have met me, you come up to me, you see me at the conference and you say, hey, I was at your webinar, and we're going to start talking. Okay. All right. Any last words from anybody else? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the very first AMS webinar. And best of luck to all of you with your careers. Once again, reach out. And if there's anything that we can do to help you, I know everybody here is very much wanting to do so. So have a good day.
Okay, just down to us, right?